So what do you do when your bank account in Xero doesn't balance? In this video, I'm going to give you some suggestions of what might have gone wrong. So here we are in Xero, and first of all, we're in the ideal world, which obviously none of us do live in. But here's our ideal world where our statement is balanced at the 31st of August. And if we go and look at our transactions, we can see all our transactions. Now it's demo data, so I only have a month's transactions. I know in the real world you're probably going to have a lot more to look at than that, but we have our month of August transactions and we can see everything is fed in properly from the bank feed, everything has been reconciled, and it's all perfect. So here's a slightly different scenario. Our bank is still being reconciled in Xero, so we think that's great, but according to Xero, the statement balance is minus, so it's an overdraft of £2,500. Now we know, we've looked at our bank statement and we know that figure is incorrect. If your figure is incorrect, the first place I would go to in Xero is Accounting, Advanced, and head to your conversion balances. Conversion balances being the opening balances that you need to input when you start using Xero. So we are in our first month in Xero. We started using Xero on the 1st of August, so we needed to input conversion balances. And that's where we've gone wrong, because we haven't entered our opening balance for the bank. So we're going to add a new line and enter it in here. So if we pick up bank current account and looking at our bank statement, we can see that we had £10,000 in our bank. I'm going to tab through that and I'm going to say save. Now we'll go back to our dashboard, and here we now have our statement balance, what it should be. So that was easy, but that's often where you have gone wrong. So it's always worthwhile checking that the opening balance was entered in Xero when you started using Xero. Okay, time to look at another example. So again, on the dashboard, and this kind of looks right. Our statement balance is right, it's 7,500, but our balance in Xero is a little bit different. And we think we've input everything and it's all up to date. So we do need to do a little bit of investigating. So we're going to go to the three dots, and a report that's always good to look at is the reconciliation report. So we're going to choose that, and we're going to choose our date, which is the 31st of August. And what we have here, the statement balance is correct, but the balance in Xero is different to the statement balance, and we've got an outstanding payment. Now that might be correct, but we're looking at this and we go, this is not correct. An outstanding payment means the payment has been entered in Xero, but it hasn't fed through from the bank. And we say, well, that's wrong, because we have got a bank feed in place. This payment did take place. It is in our bank statement. So why is this shown as outstanding? So what we need to do is a little bit of investigating. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and I'm just going to pick up my bank transactions. I'm going to do a search, going to choose exact amount, and I'm going to search for £30. And look what I find. I find that the payment is entered twice. This is the one that we've already seen. It's unreconciled, but also that did feed through from the bank, and we've reconciled that. So that looks a bit weird. There's two transactions. So what has happened? So let's go to the one that's reconciled and take a look at it. So the one that's reconciled, it's a spend money transaction, and we've coded that to telephone and internet. But if we go back, let's look at the one that's unreconciled, and we can see that this time it's a payment and it's been matched to an invoice. There's no reference number, that's just me being lazy on the demo company. But if we go to this, and I'll tell you what's happened. So we had a bill from Vodafone, and then the payment was marked down at the bottom left. Then when the £30 actual payment came through from the bank feed, instead of matching it to that payment, somebody, and that somebody in this instance is me, incorrectly coded it to telephone. Now another clue would be, if we went to our profit and loss account, everything we're doing here is in August, so I'll just choose last month. And when we go to telephone, look, we know our telephone bill is £30 a month, but we have £60 in here. So we have the invoice, which is correct because we input our invoice from Vodafone, but then we also have spend money. So I'm going to choose the spend money transaction, options, and I'm going to remove it. I'm going to go back to my dashboard, go to my bank reconciliation, and this is what should have happened. So there's a direct debit to Vodafone, and that needs to be matched to the payment. Now, when it was done incorrectly, we created a transaction and added a new transaction, whereas we needed to match the payment. So now you can see we're back to where we want to be. Okay, what have we got this time? We're back on our dashboard. Everything is reconciled in Xero, but we've got a statement balance and it's incorrect. Now it's out by £7.50. So we say, okay, that's not right. We'll take a look at the reconciliation report. We know it's the 31st of August we want. So according to Xero, the balance in Xero and the statement balance are the same. But when we look at our bank statement, we see that it's wrong. If we go back to the very start, the 1st of August, and our balance was 10,000. So we're going to look at our bank statement and we say, okay, we're right at the start, we were wrong at the end. Now, if we had a year to look at, what would we then do? And my suggestion would be, well, let's go to the middle of the year and see what happens. So as I say, it's only a month we're looking at here, but let's follow the same example. So we're going to choose the middle of the month, and we're going to see if we were balanced at this date. And what this is going to do is let us then know if we need to look at the first half of the month or the last half of the month. So we're just saving time because we could otherwise go through every day and that might take forever. So I'm cheating a little bit if you like. So 15th of August and update. Now we do a comparison to our bank statement and we can see that at the 15th of August, this is the correct balance. It agrees to our statement. We say, okay, so now we know we can discard the first half. And remember, if this was a year, you can say you can discard 6 months. Let's look at the next half. Let's choose something like the 23rd and update again. Again, doing a comparison to our bank statement and it still agrees. So we're thinking, okay, where do we go now? Now I will choose the 29th. Same again. So now I'm going to choose the 30th. And look what happens. We see the balance on the 30th of August. But when we compare that to our bank statement, we find what's missing. So bank feeds can go wrong, and that's what's happened. So on the 30th of August, for whatever reason, our bank feed didn't appear to work. And these bank charges of £7.50 have not fed in. So we're going back into Xero and we need to fix it. I'm going to just go to the big plus and I'm going to say enter a spend money transaction. I'm going to say it's from the bank because I've also got a credit card. Next, and I'm going to fill it in. If we had loads of missing transactions, we could download them from the bank and upload as a manual upload. But because there's only one, we're just going to key it in and we're going to save. So let's go back to the dashboard and we're not quite there because our statement balance is still incorrect, but the balance in Xero is now correct. And that's because if we go back into our transactions, I could search for £7.50, but because I've got very few transactions, I can easily find it. And look, it's not reconciled, and that's because it was input manually. It doesn't say import here. So what we need to do is we need to go into this transaction, go to options and say mark it as reconciled. If we go back, another way to mark a transaction as reconciled, and this works best if you've got loads of transactions, you can select them here and there's an option here to mark as reconciled. But because this is a new business in Xero, a new organization that I've set up, I'm hovering here, but there's nothing there. And that's because at the very start, you need to go to the help in Xero, enable mark as reconciled, and we need to flag that. Once we've done that, I now have this more button appeared, and if it was unreconciled, I could do it here. So I can unmark it here. So again, instead of going into the individual transaction, if we had loads of transactions, select them by ticking them up to here, more, and mark as reconciled. And now we're back to where we want to be. So here we are again. Our bank is reconciled in Xero, but when we compare it to our statement balance, it doesn't agree. Now here's somewhere else that you can go. If you go to the three dots, you have an option to go to bank statements. I would choose, instead of statement lines, statements. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a look at this statement that's got a start and balance. And when I go in here, I can see when I scroll down, a statement line has been deleted. I would like to think this was deleted for a reason, but statement lines can be deleted in error if somebody is not sure what they're doing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the statement line and I'm going to restore. Then back on my dashboard, the statement balance is correct, but I have to deal with this transaction. So I'm going to reconcile it, and it's pretty straightforward. Xero's actually made the suggestion, and yes, the payment was to HMRC, and yes, it's for VAT. So I'll say OK, back on the dashboard, and we're sorted. Okay, let's have a recap at what we looked at when our bank account didn't balance in Xero and the type of errors that we looked at. Of course, we started with the ideal world, which was great, where everything was balanced. Then, if things don't balance, go to your conversion balances and make sure that there was a conversion balance entered at the start of using Xero. Then we looked at where a transaction had been duplicated, and we went into a reconciliation report and we saw that something was outstanding and that didn't look right, because we knew that that transaction had fed through the bank. So we removed a duplicate transaction. Then we looked at a scenario where the bank feed went wrong. And if I was going to bet on it, I would say this is often what will happen. This is probably the most likely thing that you're going to be looking for. So we went to the reconciliation report and we chose various dates till we found the date when we had, and we were lucky, we only had one missing transaction. We added it manually and we reconciled it. And then we took a quick look at where you can see your statement lines and your statements that have fed into Xero, and it might be worth checking to see if there have been some deleted transactions and if they've possibly been deleted in error. So that's just some of my suggestions for fixing your bank errors in Xero. I hope you find the video useful. It can be very confusing getting your bank sorted. Remember, I do offer one-to-one coaching if you feel that will be helpful. And as always, there's a link in the description below. But until the next video, until next time, happy Xeroing.